Good afternoon, Jambos, and a massive thank you for tuning in to Over the Maroon podcast, episode 2, for the fans, by the fans. Your hosts today are myself, Lee, and
myself, Rory. Familiar voices for last week.
Fantastic. Now, Thomas can't make it this week. He's got other commitments, but he will be joining us again for next week's episode. And along with us today, we have a very special guest, and it's time to introduce our first Over the Maroon podcast guest. This guy has over 100 appearances for Heart of Midlothian, winning the Scottish Cup in 1998, moved on and signed for Bolton Wanderers, then Glasgow Rangers before moving on to Manchester City, signing for the Sky Blues for a fee of 500 grand back in the year 2000. He even managed a goal for the Scotland national team. Now living stateside, but his burning passion for Hearts is still there, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Cup-winning legend, Paul Ritchie.
Unbelievable team.
So, Paul, you started your pro career in 1992 with Heart of Midlothian, making over 150 appearances. And what part of your life did you think you could make it as a pro footballer?
It was always something that is every boyhood dream. I think when I was younger, it's all we ever done. As I said, it's from before school, during school, after school. As I said, back in those days, it was just the done thing. Everybody just wanted to play football, and I managed to be part of a youth club at 9 years old and played for a club in Glenrothes. It's called Leslie Hearts, and played 2 or 3 years up. I think I was 10 and I was playing at U12, and then, as I said, from there it was just I loved the game. I loved going watching Hearts, playing every week, and just was very, very fortunate, very, very lucky to be exposed to certain environments at certain times in my life that it definitely helped me. So to make it pro, as I said, that it was always a dream. To realise that dream was fantastic, but there was a few hiccups on the way, and there was a few times in my early career where I thought it might never happen, but managed to get through those and was very fortunate to have the career I did.
I'm just saying, you joined Hearts in 1992, Paul. Who was the first team manager then? Was it Joe Jordan? Was it?
Yes. So I actually signed for Hearts when. So schoolboy forums. I was 12 years old, so I signed for schoolboy forum. Wee Doddy was still the manager. Sandy Clark was the what would you call it, youth team coach. So when I was 12, I was travelling through Hearts twice a week, Tuesday, Thursdays. Being part of that sort of, there was obviously schoolboy forums at the time, so I was still being able to practice my own team and play with Hearts at certain tournaments, and obviously, but at that time Hearts had the third team in Reserve League East. So the time I got to 14, 15, I was playing in some of those games when I was still at school. So that was like a fantastic opportunity and a great experience for me. I remember playing against Big Duncan Ferguson at Tannadice when I was 15, and he was playing the first team, and he battered me from pillar to post. But like experiences like that, I think were critical to younger players at the time, to be exposed to that sort of level, because like nowadays, I think that's the academy systems and the way the kids are brought up, they don't get exposed to what the real game's like until they're maybe not too late, but when it does arrive, it's a big difference from playing academy level football. So I was very fortunate. As I said, I was Sandy Clark was fantastic for us. As I said, he was the one that basically gave us the foundations to build on a number of good players who came through that time, who played in the first team eventually.
You obviously started with Hearts at a young age and through the Heart Academy, but did you have the role models at home to inspire you to become a footballer, someone that would take you along to the games each week? Like you said, the Tuesday and Thursday, was there someone at hand to motivate you to do that?
Yeah, as I say, I was very lucky.
Players just now in the youth academy aren't exposed to that, are they?
And I think that was a big thing. I think, as I said, back in the day when the Reserve League and the Reserve League East, it was a fantastic opportunity and a great grounding for young players to get that sort of exposure against first team players. And I think the younger these kids got that, I think it was, as I said, it set them in good stead to get them ready for that level they were fortunate enough to get there. And I think that was a big thing for us at the club. As I said, the club had no problem playing us in the reserve. The reserve league East on a Wednesday and then the reserves on a Saturday. Because back then the reserves played on the same day as the first team. So with the squad of the HUD, as I said, the first team would play at Ibrox and then the reserves would play at Tynecastle against Rangers. So everybody was basically involved would play. And I think it was, as I said, it was a great grounding for us as young professionals at the time.
Especially that back then, even that Rangers team that would have been in the reserves would have had some talent in them, and you know you're going to be up against one or two really good players that would probably walk into the first Hearts team.
Exactly, and I'm just saying for 90% of the Premier League teams, you're talking about obviously players coming back from suspension, players coming back from injury, and as I said, the reserve league was really, really strong. As I said, and I just don't understand why I know they tried to tinker it and change the way things were done and it looked as if they were trying to protect younger players, but for me, I think it was fantastic. Big Sandy used to play, and as I said, Sandy was obviously our coach, but he was playing. It's still him at that age was still led by example, and it was a real sort of icon for us because you're watching your coach run about and smash these centre backs and really still have that real high energy and love of the game, even though he was a coach. So it was great for us, to be honest. It was a fantastic sort of grounding. As I said, it was exactly what we needed as young players.
See, through your early days at Hearts and as a youth player, did you always play similar positions, or are you one of these guys that's been sort of shunted around and then found your position, or were you always
No, it was once I went to Hearts, I used to play as a striker. I used to play as a left forward. As I said, obviously I was bigger, faster, stronger when I was younger. So yeah, I had a quite successful career as a sort of a young forward. As soon as I went to Hearts, that got changed. Like, no, you just go sit in the back and head the ball as far as you can and become a defender. And that was great for me. As I said, it was tailoring the game to my needs. As I said, playing club grassroots is completely different from playing in that environment. And as I said, I took it in my stride, and just to be coached at a sort of, as I said, a professional level, even at that young age on the ground staff, it was always centre back, sometimes left back, obviously being left footed, and then obviously we went to a back three at times as well. So yeah, once I went into the Hearts, it was defender, keep me away for the opposition goal.
That's great. Yeah, they've done something similar like that to Callum Patterson when he came from Tynecastle. He was obviously playing as a striker there at grassroots level, and then when he came into Hearts, put him into defence. So even to this day, you don't know your true position until you are under the influence of professionals.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, Rory. And I think that's the big thing for, as I say, I think it's great for young kids just now when they are at grassroots or even at the academy levels at a younger age group in the academy. I think, as I say, giving these kids opportunities to play different positions is great. But yeah, once you get to sort of 15, 16, 17, then by that time you should know where your strengths and weaknesses are. And then, as I said, if you're fortunate enough to be in an academy environment, then the coaching staff within that will definitely help with those attributes that you've got and improve your weaknesses. So I think our younger age kids are definitely, I think it's great for them to get shunted from centre back to centre forward. But yeah, definitely once you get in that academy environment at 15s to 19s, then that's the age where you should really know your strongest position.
It gives you the chance to fulfill the experience of a striker, knowing where to stand, knowing what type of touch to take, and then you've got the compromise of when you have to defend against that, last form of attack. And it's, when it comes to the 86th minute and you are looking for an equaliser or a winner, that defender who has played grassroots as a striker can get the opportunity to go up and show them what.
Yeah, definitely. I think it definitely helps with the consequence side of the game. As I said, if you've got knowledge how to play as a striker, then it should make your job as a defender easier. And as I said, I think that's what the best coaches do, and that's what the best clubs do. These kids now are fully aware of the pros and cons of numerous positions to help them with their own development.
A moment when you were at Hearts and you were marking Duncan Ferguson and you wished that you were a left winger again.
I think to be honest, it was great because I was still so young. It was that's, as I said, the adrenaline and the excitement, as I said, from even being that young. As I said, Big Dunk was only just coming into the first team at Dundee United as well, but he already had a name for himself. But it was just, as I said, that was was probably the first step in the direction of, well, this is where I want to be. This is a level where, even though it was the third team, the reserve league East, it was like, and I remember it was pissing with rain at Tannadice. It was freezing cold, but it was just like, yeah, this is it. And you know that this is the type of player and the type of character who plays at the top level. And Big Dunk went on to be a massive player for many, many clubs and for this country. And that was, even then, it was like you knew his attributes. And it was, as I said, for a young boy, because I was still a boy at the time, 15, 16, it was a fantastic experience.
So we've spoken about some of the hurdles that you may have come across at Hearts. How did you get over any of those hurdles that may have occurred during your early days at
Hearts? As I said, it was great. Being on the ground staff and being an apprentice was fantastic. It was tough. As I said, in the old days, Sandy was a real taskmaster, and he really it was more about a grounding and a real sort of look at real life work. Because when we were on the ground staff, remember, we were left to do all the jobs in Tynecastle. We didn't have our own training facilities, so the first team used to come to Tynecastle and get changed, and then obviously we would train at either Saughton, Heriot, Watt, wherever we could find, because we were very nomadic at the time. But our main job at the club at that time was to clean the boots, wash the stadiums, clean the stands, the dressing rooms. So, as I said, it was a full-time job out with being a football player. Like, so some weeks we didn't get to play, practice till a Thursday. If Hearts played Hibs or Celtic or Rangers at Tynecastle on the Saturday, and there was 29,000 there before the new stands, the ground staff had to clear the stands before Sandy would let us train. And there was 14 or 15 of us in the ground staff. It took us 4 days. As I said, and in the winter time when the pies and all that started to freeze to the terrace and stairs, as I said, some weeks we never trained till a Thursday. It was a 7 till 5 job. We had to be in at 7:30 to make sure all the kit was ready and everything was ready for wee Robbo and Big Henry and Craig. And it was, as I said, it was the days were tough. But when looking back, as I said, once again, that's what gave us, I think, the grounding for so many of those players to come through that team, that club at that time, to go on and play in the first team. Because, as I said, it was some great banter. As I said, the young boys at the time, we got on like a house on fire. But it was tough. It was long days, and there was, as I said, not a lot of football getting played at that time. But as I said, once again, that was how it was done back then. And as I said, looking back, eternally grateful for what we learned as human beings at that time and how it helped us in our future. Can
you name drop a few of those players that would have been in that apprenticeship? With
Gary O'Connor, Tommy
jobs?
Harrison, Marvin Wilson, Anthony Smith, Alan Johnson, Gary Locke, who else now? Big John. I'll try to think. The big centre back, John. Somebody will come back to him. So they were older than us. Tommy Wright. So we were a sort of intake group, and there was a group of sort of older ones who, obviously, like Tommy Harrison, Gary O'Connor. They were slightly older than us, and then obviously myself, McManus, Callahan, Locke, David Murray, Grant Murray, Miles Hogarth, Matt Bradley. So so that was us, and that was our introduction to becoming a sort of YTS full-time footballer.
And I guarantee you wouldn't change it for the modern football that's played just now, where you're training 5 days a week and 100%.
I think looking back, as I said, that was those 2-3 years, that was exactly what we needed in order. Because at the end of the day, you look at the game nowadays, and as I said, for me, I always look at it, and whenever I was asked why did I want to play football, well, I wanted to play for the team I supported as a boy, and I wanted to play for my country, and I was very fortunate enough to do that. You ask a young kid now, why did I want to play football? Oh, I want to drive a Lamborghini. I want to be like Messi. I want to be. So the whole game's changed. The money that's came into the game nowadays has completely changed the perception for these young soccer players, football players. And as I say, for us back then, it was even when we were on the ground staff. When you looked at it, you were eternally grateful for being there, but we're still a million miles away from playing in the first team. But the sort of the pathway was there. You were close. You changed in the reserve team, changing them. You rubbed shoulders with Big Craig and Alan McLaren and Henry, Gary Mackay, Robbo. They were all there. You looked after them. They looked after you in different ways. But that was, as I said, those first 3 years as an apprentice were fantastic in a different way. Many.
Okay, so obviously you made it into the Hearts first team and you were very successful. But the listeners are going to want to know about one thing, and it's going to be the cup win that day. So my question is, how confident were you guys going into the cup final from the semi up to the day, on the day, did you have a real belief that you could bring the cup home, or how did you feel?
I think we did. I think that was the biggest thing about that group. I think that what Jim Jeffries and Billy achieved with that group of players and the self-belief that we had, we took some doings that year. As I said, well, prior to that year, we should have won the league that year, and then all honesty, I think we let ourselves down at Easter Road. I think it was just after January or February. I think if we'd beat Hibs at Easter Road that day, I think we could have went on and won the league. But the players, the quality that Jim and Billy brought in to Hearts in their time, obviously the Gilles Rousset, Pasquale Bruno, Stefan Adams, Stefano Salvatore, Thomas Flugel, like they were perfect for Hearts. And he also had that sort of blend, the young player who had the ground in, knew what it was like to play for Hearts, supported Hearts, and it was just a perfect blend. And we were confident, as I said. We knew that on our day we were as good as anybody in the league that year, and we got fortunate. There's no getting away from it. But we started the game great, as I said. After we got a little scare in the semi-final against Falkirk. I thought we were lucky to survive a sort of a little spell in the first half, but we did have a self-belief in that group that, as I said, we'd worked so hard to get to where we were. As I said, the 2 cup finals prior to that were heartbreaking for us as a group and individually. So I think once again it was learning from our mistakes, taking on board what had happened before, and then from there, just that day was, as I said, it was a perfect sort of storm for that group of players. As I said, we get an early goal. And then, as I said, we hang on by a ball here by the end. But I think looking at it, we defended well enough to win the cup that day, and we got the 2 goals. So there was a self-belief. There was. Jim and Billy were always at us to really push us to be the best version of ourselves we could be, and they believed in us, and we believed in each other, and we believed in ourselves. So, as I said, we were confident that we would get a result if we scored first. That was the biggest thing. Any of these games when you play against the Old Firm, if you've got something to hold on to, then you give yourself a chance. If you don't score first, then it's a mountain to climb. And we Mickey scoring the penalty early doors was a perfect start for us.
Was it a penalty?
Well, sure, for sure it was. Well, what the one on McCoist or the one we got?
No, both, I think.
Yeah, well, I'd say one was a penalty, one wasn't. The referee got it 100% right. Got it right. Yeah, he got it right.
And what a back line you had too, Paul. Yourself, Naismith, Weir, McPherson, and then obviously Gilles and goals as well. Like, surely you guys must have been confident in each other to stop any team on the day.
If you're on your game, as I say, when you look at it, Big Davy Weir for me is one of the best centre backs ever to play for Hearts and Scotland. And Big Slim had been there and done that and had so much experience. Fantastic leader, great individual. And then we Naismith, who, as I said, was an incredible player as well, and went on to do some great things. So we were good. Big Gilles, as I said, it was, and that's where you build your team. As I said, you got a great spine, and you look at the middle of the team as well. You go Big Gilles, the 2 centre backs, me and Davy, and then you had Mickey, Fulton, and Adam. So as I said, that team was, as I said, full of quality. As I said, and every one of us that day gave a performance that deserved to win the cup, and as I said, I think we thoroughly deserved it.
100%. And the opponents, they weren't too shabby themselves. Obviously, we've just run through the Hearts team, but there's some names on that away team as well that you got to kind of pinch yourself and think, well, Gattuso, Laudrup, McCoist, some really good players there. But you at the end, when it comes to the final and you lift that trophy, you're not looking back at them. You're thinking,
and I think that was a big thing when that Hearts team came up against some incredible Rangers and Celtic teams. When you look at the players that were in both sets of squads at the time, and for us to actually get to 2 cup finals prior to that, as I said, showed how well Jim and Billy did. And to win that one in '98 was, as I said, was just the perfect sort of no ending, but that was, I think that was the pinnacle of that group, and I think obviously the club tried to improve it and move it on the right direction, but unfortunately it never worked that way. But yeah, for that group of players with those foreign players that we had at the time and the homegrown players that we had, as I said, I think that was, as I said, the perfect sort of. It could have been a starting point, but unfortunately it wasn't. And to go on to do bigger and better things. But as I said, it was a great sort of three years under Jim and Billy to get to where we got to.
It was a fantastic balance.
And
I think
yeah,
that's
I think it was. I think
what you
got
can look at there.
the real quality in the Salvatores, the Adams, the Flugels, and then you had the gritty sort of homegrown, heart on your sleeve, run through a brick wall, and that was Scottish football. And I think that's where, as I said, and then obviously we brought in a little bit better quality squad when Neil McCann came as well. As I said, he was slightly different from myself and probably Naismith and Lockie. As I said, we as I said, we knew our jobs, we knew our responsibilities. We wouldn't leave anything on the field, and then to bring in like say Davy Weir and Neil McCann from a soccer point of view, football point of view, they were as I said, another level above as a football player, and that's not been disrespectful to myself and Lockie and Gary Naismith. So Gary Naismith was probably above me and Lockie as well, but we knew what we were good at. We knew what we needed to do. We knew what we needed to do to be successful, as I said. And then these players that came in were just as I said, brought a real bit of quality to an already good team.
I think that's the thing, and people, whenever they're looking at making their, I don't know, the best 11 of Hearts or their, five-a-side team of Hearts, there's not a time that any fan are not going to pick players from that 98 winning side.
Yeah, you got 100% right.
It's full of superstars, really.
We knew our roles and responsibility, and that was Jim and Billy. That's what they were good at, as I said. And I know, as I said, for me myself, see, I knew I was better without the ball than with the ball. Davy Weir was a fantastic footballer. Gary Naismith was a great footballer. Me, I'm a defender, and that was me. I would just stop. My main job was to stop the person who I was playing against. And as I said, as I said, if I could do that and give the ball to somebody else who can then go and make the difference, then that's me had a successful game. As I said, I always remember Tommy McLean, and that was when I've never really spoken about it there. But when you're talking about hurdles, and I always remember Tommy McLean in a reserve game, just like saying, "Oh, Richie, you're hopeless. See, when you win the ball, you just give it to Alan Johnson or the nearest man to you, and they'll make the ball do the work." And I was and I, as I said, I'm brutally honest. As I said, I know I'm not, as I said, a football player, a ball playing centre back. I'm a defender, and as I said, I think that you're right. You had the blend. Hearts had the blend. Jim and Billy knew how to get the best out of all the players that they had, and as I said, it was a perfect blend for those 2 or 3 years.
And do you think, with regards to coaching, if you were to say that to, I don't know, a 16, 17-year-old in modern day football,
no, not at all.
Would take that the same way you did?
Me being in coaching, as I said, I think it's very hard to players' mentalities and the way kids are structured nowadays. It's a little bit different. For me, that was that drove me to become better. He was at the time. I thought it was a bit harsh, and it did sting a little bit. But deep down, it was probably true, and it was probably then because Tommy McLean was ready to cut, sell, move us all on young players before he got sacked, and probably that was maybe a wee sort of, from my opinion, was like, well, we fuck you to you when she did leave. And I was fortunate enough not being, as I said, not anybody to ever lose a job, but when he did lose his job, as I said, it was perfect timing for me as an individual, and then Jim and Billy come in because, as I said, there was a group of players there who had been at the club for 3 or 4 years but never got anywhere close to the first team. I remember going to Kilmarnock. I was in the squad, got to Kilmarnock, had never made my debut. Walter Kidd was my coach at the reserves, and Tommy played Walter Kidd in a first team game down at Rugby Park against Kilmarnock before the young players, and Walter hadn't played in 2 or 3 years. But that was sort of everybody's entitled to their own opinions and how they see players. But yeah, that one stung a little bit. And then very fortunate for us as a group, and as I said, for the upcoming years that Tommy lost his job and Jim got in and changed things about.
I coach myself, and I know that if I said that, I'd face scrutiny. But having played football at grassroots and having, rubbed shoulders with really good players, I know that you do need that. And even in this modern day, you need to receive criticism that is going to make you a reflection of what am I doing wrong, which I can correct, what can I make better, and you just have to face that, don't you? And I feel like that's probably done you massively, although you didn't like it at the time.
Yeah, and I think I'm very fortunate, and as I said, I'm the same as you. I'm coaching now as younger players, but I know when I look back, and I was very fortunate to play under some, as I said, some really strong strong managers, strong-willed managers, and there was a fear factor for me, and I think that helped me, as I said, because I was afraid to let people down. Nowadays, that's not the case. You can't have these kids going out and players going out feeling fearful of going to play football. But back in the day, it was. As I say, I was petrified some games going into it. It wasn't a nervousness. Yep. It was a fear. But that actually got the best out of me. As I said, I played for Jim Jeffries, Colin Lee, Sam Allardyce, Harry Redknapp, Joe Royal, all very cut from the same cloth, very, very, very knowledgeable about the game, but very, very hard on individuals and demanding, and they knew exactly what it would take to be successful, and they let you know. But nowadays, you're right. As I said, it's especially over here in the States, as I said, it's a completely different environment than it is back home in the UK. But yeah, we as coaches now, it's, as I said, I am still as honest as I can be within a reasonable level, because obviously you can't be telling kids that they're not good enough. That's not the case. It's a case of how we try and build these kids up to understand what it needs to take to play at any sort of level, and that's the biggest thing is just trying to help these kids become the best version of themselves they can be. And as I said, it's different here, but back in the UK, I can still imagine the amount of kids that want to play professionally, but are they willing to make the sacrifices? Are they willing to take on the criticism to get to that next level? I'm not sure if there's enough kids in the current climate who have got the shoulders to take the pressure that comes with the job.
I agree 100%. You name dropped there, and I'm just going to pick up on one of them, and I'm sure Rory's probably thinking the same name as I am.
Like Sam.
Sam Allardyce.
Yeah,
was that when you were at Bolton on loan?
Incredible 6-month period in my life. As I said, obviously things at Hearts had sort of deteriorated and went the way they did. And yeah, and to be fair, Big Jim was brutally honest with me, and as he said, as I said, we're still best terms. As I said, but I totally understand where he was coming from. As I said, I was coming to 6 months left in my contract. He didn't feel it was Hearts was the right place for me at the time to play my last 6 months, because obviously he had to start building for the future. So I got the opportunity to go to Bolton on loan and play in a fantastic Bolton team in the Championship, and it was, as I said, it was a great opportunity. As I said, I loved every minute of it. Disappointed obviously to leave Hearts the way I did, and as I said, there was a lot of things that went on there that people don't know, and as I said, obviously there's people who've got better taste in their mouth with regards to how it worked out and where I went and shit like that, and yeah, understandable. But as I said, not everybody knows the true story and stuff like that. So for me to leave the club that I supported as a boy, it was tough, especially after the year we had that following year. After the cup, it was tough because we lost wee Mickey, and as I said, we really struggled. We had a hangover for that Scottish Cup, and we just never really got ourselves back to where we knew we could be. And yeah, the opportunity to me go to Bolton on loan was great. Sam and Phil Brown was great. Some great players there as well. We had Eider Gudjohnsen and Klaus Jensen, Jussi Jaselainen and Dean Holdsworth, JJ Okocha. So it was we had a fantastic team, and we just missed out promotion that year, and we got beaten in the FA Cup semi-final. Alan Johnston was there for a period of time as well, and it was great.
Yeah,
going down there was, as I said, I think Scottish football was always looked upon as being, as I said, a feeding ground for it, and I've seen it today. The boy Cosgrove's away to Birmingham. As I said, the quality to go down and play in England and play in the different levels and I think everybody wants to play in the Premiership, but the Championship, as I said, is incredible. It was an incredible level for me. Was my level, as I said, from a competitive point of view. It was probably the level as I said, performed at my capabilities. At Premiership, when I went there with City that first year, it was tough, and there was no getting away. The level of player there was way higher than I could probably deal with on a regular basis, as I said, and that was. Right. I just think that was my level.
What do you think that was that made it that way?
I'm very, very fortunate to have done what I did in my career and get my caps and make the appearances I did. But in all honesty, I was probably not a Premiership level player. As I said, just a little bit short of being what it needed to take to play at that level. As I said, but I tried. I got an opportunity with City to get there. Played 10, 12 games in the Premiership, and then before I got injured. And as I said, it was difficult. As I said, that City team, when they got promoted that first year before Keegan came in, was was a difficult team to be involved in, because there were some strong characters who preferred not playing football than playing football. The lifestyles that these guys led, the things that they did away from the field were completely different from what a professional footballer should do. And that's why that team wasn't successful. As you said, they had a lot of big characters who were fantastic players, but just liked the other side away from the game at the time. And I think that was public knowledge. As I said, they let themselves down, they let the club down at that time, and we getting relegated and Joe losing his job was probably, as I said, in hindsight, one of the best things that happened to Man City, with Keegan coming in, and then from there, that club just sort of skyrocketed over the next 15, 20 years in a direction where they are now. And it's, as I said, it was a fantastic club at the time, and now it's just out of this world.
Yeah. I can't imagine that you would have expected Manchester City to be where they are.
But that was the thing, though. Leaving Hearts and leaving obviously Scotland to go to England, as I said, it's even back then, as I said, Man United, we trained at Carrington beside Man United. They had the state-of-the-art training facility. The City just started building theirs, and it was still a million miles from where we were at Hearts. Obviously, Hearts now are everybody's starting to come along with the training facilities, and everybody's starting to get to the multi-million pound training facilities, which is great. But as I said, England was miles in front of Scotland at that time. But now, as I said, everybody's starting to catch up, and it's becoming a much more enjoyable environment to practice.
Cool. Right, so Paul, obviously we're talking about one of the former clubs, Man City, and they went through probably the biggest transformation in world football. I was just wondering, were you touching earlier on how the kids were treated when you're at Hearts to how they must be treated at Manchester City? They're signing kids in the academy that are getting £80,000 a week. The sponsorship deals with Adidas. They're already celebrities on Instagram, and they've not even kicked a football before. Like, how do you think that elite level of talent works, and do you think that's the right structure for them at a team like Man City? Obviously it works for them, but they don't actually bring a lot of players through. Do you think that's a problem? Or
I think you've just hit the nail on the head. I think it's everybody wants these kids at this age or that age, and the money that's getting like branded about for 12, 13-year-olds is ridiculous, because regardless of the talent they've got at whatever age, it takes, as I said, the sacrifices and the sort of the background and the support people around you, and the structure is and being lucky and being in the right place at the right time. There's so many different parts to going in to be fortunate to make in the first team. As I said, yeah, these kids have got talent, but at the end of the day, talent doesn't make you become a professional at anything in life. You've got to work hard for it. You've got to want it. And I just feel with these kids getting so much so early, being surrounded by influences that might not have their best interests at heart, then it makes it difficult. And you're right, I don't think City brings through that many players. You look at Phil Foden, I think he epitomises what it needs to become a professional footballer. That kid is hard-working, humble. As I say, it's not to say all the other kids are, but I guarantee there's not there's not 100 Phil Fodens in Man City's academy just now. And that's the same. I say not everybody produces 10 players a year. As I say, if these big clubs spend the money early doors and they can produce one or two every 2 or 3 years, and then what City do well is they produce talent and sell it on. So it basically funds itself. So they've got a fantastic business model. I think they bring all these kids in early doors and they give them a fantastic experience and a fantastic, as I said, grounding and the best of the best. But then they'll go and sell them for 15 or 20 million to a team in Europe. So they'll still see that as being successful. And I think that's where the game's completely changed. I think back in the day at Hearts and all these Scottish clubs, anybody in the olden days, your academy was for your own club. I think Man City use it as a business model. I think they use it as a revenue of income. Everybody wants to be at that club and everybody wants to be part of Pep's sort of machine. And then these kids, once they get to 16, 17, 18, if they're not ready for City's first team, then they ship them off for a substantial amount of money. And the profit they've made out of that is, as I said, they've done a great job. As I said, maybe not what the supporters want, but I think the supporters at City now have probably changed as well. As I said, they demand success on a weekly basis. And as I said, whoever wins them the Premiership or the Champions League, I don't think they really care from where they came from. Not like back in the day when it was that Main Road, and it was a real hardcore Manchester supporters who went to support him. They wanted to see Richard Hedgehill and all these sort of local players playing in the first team. Now I think it's more about the success, and as I said, I think the model they've got at City is incredible. How they can bring in the players that they've got at a young age and ship them off for millions of pounds. It's a business for them.
The one problem, the one position that they do seem to struggle 100%. With at Man City, those left back, it's Zinchenko, it's Mendy, stand a chance now, Paul?
Absolutely zero. As I said, I couldn't playing in Pep's team. That'd be as I said, no. And I think that's when I knew. As I said, even before that, when Keegan came in, Keegan's teams were very, very obviously possession based and attack minded. As I said, if Kevin Keegan's team lost 3 goals, he would try and score 4. As I said, so as I said, I knew my days were numbered. As I said, the amount of times that they got in the ball and passed it, I'd get away too much. So as I said, no. I think, as I said, put me in Sam's West Brom team at centre back, then I might have a wee chance.
Yeah. Do you think, Paul, that football, obviously in its modern age just now, is evolved so much so that because of the likes of Cruyff, and then you look at Pep and Jurgen Klopp and stuff, they are predominantly playing risk-free football. It's constant risk. Each time the goalkeeper has the ball, he wants his centre-backs and wing-backs asking for the ball, showing themselves. Do you feel like, as a fan, or obviously as a coach just now, but as us, as being fans, when we do watch Heart of Midlothian play against Dunfermline, that we are actually expecting too much?
I don't think you can expect too much, because I think you look at it, everybody wants to play it, but I think where we are now is, I think at a professional level, as I said, you ask any supporter, it's like, what would they rather have on a Saturday? Would they rather have their team pass the ball 1,000 times and lose 1-0 or draw 0-0, or win the game 2 or 3-0 just by playing the way that they're successful? I think it's finding a balance, because as I said, I know, as I said, being a supporter myself and going to watch Hearts, and if Hearts win on a Saturday, that's the most important thing for me. And then when you look back on it, you turn back and say, it was a shit game, or we actually played quite well. But if you lose on a Saturday, first thing you think is, for fuck's sake, that was terrible. No matter how well they played, I think it's a results-oriented business. And yeah, if you can find a manager and a group of players who can play it in the right way, and whatever that may be, as I said, the game, for me, as I said, having been involved at, as I said, a professional level and what we're trying to achieve, as I said, not everybody can play like Man City. I know a lot of people are trying, and as I said, Pep's went out and bought the best players in the world to fit a system that he wants to play. Jurgen Klopp's got players that can match the system he wants to play. Not many people get that opportunity to have 1 to 11 players to play the way that you want to coach. So, as I said, you've got to find your own way of being successful as a coach and as a club. And I think, as I said, you look at Robbie just now and how Hearts are doing, and as I said, rightly or wrongly, where they are. As I said, they're miles ahead, but we still see frustrating weekends. We don't win every game, but that's football. As I said, there's no given right to win every single game. And for me, it's, as I said, especially at the lower levels of any sport, as I'm grassroots. If you can work harder than your opponent, you give yourself a far better chance of being successful than having the talent. Because as I said, hard work outweighs talent 100%, in my opinion. If talent doesn't work hard, then as I said, it's pointless. And I've watched that over the weekend in some of the college games. As I said, my wife and I coach at college, and the boys team, as I said, they've got some talented players, but they just don't look interested. And if that's the case, then they're never going to be successful. It's interesting now because MLS have they've taken over from the old US Soccer Development Academy, and we're part of that. And it's a model here which is it would never work back home, and this is where it's completely it's night and day. So we're basically part of an MLS Next League, so that includes all these MLS academies from 13s, U13s to U19s. Some of the MLS academies only have 15s to 19s, but we're interacting with them. So basically, our amateur teams, we're grassroots, so we're part of that. But it doesn't work because obviously we go and play potentially LA Galaxy or LAFC, and they've got the best of the best. It's fully funded, and we're a grassroots team. So from that, the parity between the teams is night and day, and it doesn't work because what we send our best players to that environment. Mm-hmm. So we send our best players to these academies, but then they expect us to play against them the following week. So they need to think about that, and they need to figure that out because that doesn't work. But there's enough talent here to, And I always said that before I even moved here. I was very, very surprised that US football, soccer never materialised, never kicked on to a level where they were really competitive at a world level. I think that still will come. I think this current crop that are coming through the national team now, who have just been brought in, who have all had this European upbringing, I do think they will be successful one day. To what level, I'm not sure, because the country's massive. The diversity in the population, they have to be successful sometime. They've just got to get the blueprint right, and the right coaches in the right places, and develop talent in the right way. And I think they will become a massive, massive power in the world game.
See, talking about that, Paul, just interested, who's the up and coming one that the Americans are looking at, whether it's in college academies or maybe in a set up with one of the MLS teams? But is there a hidden gem that sort of everybody's talking about? Or
there's a few. There's a kid who was a local kid. There's a boy called Evan Rotundo. He just moved. He's a 2004, and just moved to Schalke. He was incredible. He was a Southern California kid. Played here down in San Diego. Played for San Diego Surf, one of the biggest clubs in the States. But this kid was small, but football wise, an incredible talent. And he just signed a deal probably 6 months ago. So he moved by himself, which, as I said, fantastic. There's a lot of bollocks to do something like that as something so young. So he's over there. Definitely. So he's at Schalke. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on him. He's done fantastically well in the youth level. But as I said, he was the one that it was an incredible talent, and it'll be good to see how he does and see how that environment helps him become. As I say, I've got no doubt he will play professional one day, and as I say, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
Perfect. So, Paul, to tie up this first section before we move on to the games and stuff, we've just got 10 quick fire questions to do with Hearts and football in general. Do you mind if we fire you at them and just come back with your answers?
Thank you.
Perfect. Lee, do you want to do one each, or?
Yeah, let's do one each. Yeah.
So 10 quick fire questions.
You go first, then, buddy.
So, Paul, when you were playing, what was your boot of choice?
Fila.
Oh wow! Right, never expected that one.
I was sponsored by them. That's how I got a bat.
Throwback.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Yeah, because I don't know if you can remember. Just look back. Somebody, as I said, it was back in the time. I had these Kevlar boots with a lime green F on them, and it was this new technology. It wasn't the leather. It was like, remember the scrubbing brushes you used to get? It was like that sort of that material. They were light as anything, but anybody stood in your toe, man, you'd have a bruised toe for weeks. But they were light. They were good. Fila.
There you go.
Yes, I did. Oh, yes, I got a
did you get the Fila tracksuit on that as well?
It was on point.
Oh wow!
It was something that was horrific. Making a comeback nowadays, though.
I love that. Question 2 then. Who went off the rails after the cup win?
I don't know if you remember the bus journey back. It's all apart from Jose Katongo, because he didn't drink. Everybody.
Jose never drank.
Nah, Jose doesn't drink. Jose was.
He looked mental as well.
Yeah.
He looked mental in the celebration.
That's why he doesn't need to drink, because that's the type of character he is. Yeah. So everybody went off the rails that night.
Right.
Yeah, I remember it. I remember that
right.
bus journey.
Do you remember it?
We managed to pop the 2 sunroofs on the Parks of Hamilton buses, and we drove from Heriot Watt, obviously, all the way to Tynecastle, where I think about 10 or 12 of us on the top of the bus. Very unsafe, right enough, but back in the day, I thought we were invincible at that time, so it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
Right. Question 3, Paul. Who was the worst player you played with?
Hans Eskelsen. And I don't really like saying that. Right? That's tough to say, but Hans was probably the one that I think, as I said, Jim got done on that one. As I said, he was still a great lad. Really got he never hit the heights that we thought he could have played to.
I like that straight answer.
Okay, who is harder? Who's harder?
Ooh.
Jim Jeffries or Billy Brown?
Jim. Had a feeling you'd say Jim.
Nice.
Right, number 5. If you could smash any opponent in a 50-50, who would it be?
Current day or past?
Oh, both.
Scott Brown. And past. I did it. Paul Gascoigne.
Oh, yeah. How about that for top answers?
Nice. I tell you what, mate, that's outstanding. And they would be my 2 as well, if I was honest. If you could have played in any game of football. Just a second. I'm trying to read that. If you could have played in any game, what game would it be? So I think it's in relation to any Hearts game in the past.
Perfect.
Which game would it be?
That's the one.
Right, and your time at Hearts, Paul, who had the worst banter?
The worst banter?
Oh, the worst banter.
Gary Mackay.
Gary
Mackay. The older generation, yeah, they were terrible. Best banter, obviously, Lockie, Hosey. Worst gear, Gary Mackay. But, yeah, it's, the old school were, but they used to put us in a place. I say we were young at the time, and they used to get a bit of stick. But you guys was all right. He was
what
quite
was
quiet.
Wee Gary Naismith's
banter
like?
Gary's grown
into
an incredibly confident young man. But back in the day, he was still 3 or 4 years younger than everybody else. So there was a pecking order in the ground staff and that sort of that younger. As I say, we went through the same. So when we first come in, we were the ones that were sort of held to do more shit than the older ones, and that sort of got passed down as they came into the ground staff. Anybody that came in with an attitude or a chip on their shoulder, they got brought down a peg or two real quick. Stuart Callahan was one, and we Matt Bradley. They two were thick as thieves, and it was to say they were part of that sort of that young group that we were part of, and they had some fantastic banter.
Go on then. It's strangest manager. What? So strangest
George
manager
Burley.
You've had.
I played for George at Derby for 8 games when I went on loan. He wasn't supposed to be the manager. The boy who actually brought me in on loan got sacked the day after. So I don't think George wanted me as a player. But I went and spent 6 or 7 days, 6 or 7 games at Derby at the end of one season. And he just, as you say, we never really had any interaction, anything at all. So it was, he played me but never spoke to me. So he would probably be the strangest one.
All right, then. Here's another one about managers. If you were playing just now, would it be Klopp, Mourinho, or Guardiola? Who would you want to play for?
Mourinho. I love Mourinho. The theorem, but just Mourinho for me just now is, as I say, I think he's evolved as a manager. I think he was the first one that, as I said, who changed the way the game was played, the thought process and the thinking behind it. And as I said, I think he's now starting to evolve. I think he knows that the game's evolved since he was as successful as he was. And I love him. As I say, I love the three of them and what they bring to the current game. But yeah, I'd love to play for Mourinho. I'm not good enough to play for Pep Guardiola, and I'm not fit enough to play for Klopp. So I'd have to fit these team somewhere.
But you're a winner.
Yeah.
Right. Question 10 was football in your day or modern day, and I know that you're going to say in your day, so I'm going to ask you a different question instead. Okay. It's who would be your five-a-side team?
Right, I'll pick the players.
So if you had to pick 5 players,
so I'll go. Obviously, Gilles in goals. It would have to be. I'll do a Hearts one, and I'll do it good. So I'd go. Gilles was too big, so I'd have to go Juicy Jaskalainen, goalkeeper. Davy Weir, Ali Bernardbia, Neil McCann, Ider Johnson.
Some side.
There you go.
Wow.
Bit of balance. Yeah, good Johnston, Davy.
That is a very good side.
Defence, Bernardbia, lefty with Neil McCann.
You've got the Bolton line.
Yeah, there you go. I could do 100. Big Gilles is too big for 5-a-side.
I like your logic.
Yeah.
Lovely. Right, and to tie that up, we'd like to just chat about current things. So talk about yesterday's result with Hearts, and obviously we didn't manage to speak about the review of the midweek game against Raith. Obviously we got a really good result through in Raith, but it's one that thankfully we got the 3 points. And I mean, the week before we slated the lads on here thinking, it probably wasn't good enough. They didn't turn up until the 55th minute, and players that you would expect to be putting on a good show were hiding from the limelight. But
Fantastic.
thankfully,
I think
this
the game
weekend,
is Saturday, and I
we
think
got a win. We got 3 points.
It's a work in progress, and I think with the coaching staff we've got there and the players that are coming in, as I said, they will win the league. There's no doubt in that, and there's going to be hiccups on the way because every game that Hearts are going to play this year is going to be the so-called cup final for everybody else. As I said, it's a bigger game of the season. There's no supporters there, which I think's made a massive difference this year. When I look at the games and at every level, there's certain teams now who are out. They should never be doing as well as they should be doing, and there's teams that should be doing well. We're not. So, and I do think this has got something to do with the atmosphere. You think it shouldn't be, but then it just I think that's a test of character for the players and a testimony to the players who have got that ability to do it when there's nobody there, and it's been a real. And then it goes on the flip side for these players who are lacking a bit of confidence. There's nobody there to give them stick. So all of a sudden, this poor player who's went through 2 or 3 games lacking in confidence and doing poorly, you bring him to Tynecastle and on a normal game he would get his arse felt and he'd get ridiculed. There's nobody there to give him that. So then all of a sudden this left back does particularly well. And as I say, that's what potentially happened at the Rave game. As I said, to lose 3-0 at home to Rave should never happen. But then going beating them the other night there, as I said, was much more like it. We won't go, as I said, we won't have that unbeaten season that everybody would have hoped and dreamed for. But as long as they win more games than they lose, and get ourselves back into the top flight where we belong, as I said, I think we've got to take it as I said, it's a very, very strange year in all aspects of life, sports included. So as I said, it's a time where we just got to be patient and trust the process because we will win the league. That's not being overly confident. We should win the league, and I've got full belief that Robbie and Gordon and Lee will make sure that they do by hook or by crook.
Absolutely, I agree completely. And with regards to the fans, usually at Tynecastle, there is such an expectation for Hearts to go out there and win every time. I think that's my perception anyway. I don't know about Rory and yourselves, but if I'm going to Tynecastle, I'm not going there for a draw.
They're the best fans in the world, but they've got an opinion. They want to be heard. They demand the demands that they put on the players and the club. The demands they put on the players and the club is right because they pay a lot of money. And as I said, the Hearts are a massive club, and if players and the club are going through a hard spell where they're not doing things, they're not shy and telling them how they feel. And you've got, in all honesty, you've got to have a hard shell to be a Hearts player at times because, as I said, it's not going to be all 100% wins and playing the football that the supporters want, and you've got to have to take a bit of criticism nowadays. And I did, as I said, and that's why I think through the last sort of 10-12 years, the players that have come into the club have not had that ability to be able to shoulder that added pressure because the supporters are right on top of you. That's why it's one of the best stadiums in the world. As I said, the atmosphere in there on a big night is second to none. Even though there's only, as I said, 19,000 people there. As I said, it's incredible atmosphere. So yeah, they do, and they're close to you as well. And you can hear everything.
They make it sound like a lot more, don't they?
The Hearts player are playing against them, as I said, and if you don't have that thick skin and allow or that ability to take it on board and just let it go, then it does affect you. Because as I said, it's a lonely place sometimes being a player, and especially if things aren't going your way, and especially if it's coming from a supporter who is on your side. And that's why I think at times Hearts are, as I said, in my opinion, supporters are fully entitled to give their own opinion and they wear their hearts on their sleeve. But as I said, some of the stuff, even being there as a supporter, listening to some of the sticks some of the players get, sometimes it's tough. But as I said, it's a free world, and that's why the supporters are, as I said, in my opinion, sadly missed at this moment in time.
And I think not only in the stadium, but like walking around Edinburgh and stuff as well, like as a player, everybody that watches Hearts or Hibs knows that you are a professional footballer if you're walking around Edinburgh. And I think some players will either cherish that or really hide away from it and dislike it. And there's one player that comes to mind when I think about that, and it's young Sam Nicholson that ended up playing over in the States because he needed a new life, a different identity because of the hindrance
and that's
of his job.
unfortunate. And I think that's the current day. you've got to be able to deal with it. As I said, I think it's the rivalry between Hibs and Hearts is great, and that's where it should end. As I said, it's a game. We love beating them, they love beating us, but that should never flow over into a normal somebody's life, and then no professional, not as you said, no supporter should ever have any to deal with sort of that level of uncomfortableness, and the fact to move, and it's just that's where the line has to be drawn. As I said, it's a sport. We love playing it, we love watching it, but we've got to remember where we are just now in our current climate and situation. It's, as I said, it's a game. We miss it badly, but it's only a game. But as I said, we miss the supporters, we miss being watching them, but we've just got to be mindful of it's people's lives. As I said, and not everybody's perfect.
Let's talk about yesterday's match in professional mode. Yesterday's match then, 1-0 win. Really good strike by Jamie Walker. Lovely, lovely goal. And some really fantastic saves by Craig Gordon. What do we think, boys?
I think we spoke about it earlier. I think it's a win at all costs just now. It's not going to be pretty at times. I think the demand to have great performances week in, week out is not happening. They're winning, might be winning ugly, but I think at the end of the day, Hearts supporters will be happy with, especially with Dunfermline. I think it's a good result. It's a very good result, and it gives us a great sort of cushion at the top of the league, and then we move forward to the next game.
It looked like at one point that the match was just running away from Hearts as well, because the clock was just ticking and ticking, and it was getting later and later. What did you think about it, Rory?
I've got to agree with Paul. Sometimes you've just got to take a win over the sort of style or whatever. Do you know what I mean? The 3 points are on the board, like I said, come off a tricky result against Wraith Rovers. All we really needed to do was win. The problems that I sort of highlighted last week, I still felt they were there. But it's the central midfielders for me. I thought somehow swapping Popescu and Halkett to the different sides of the defence seems to have worked. I don't know what Paul would think of that, being obviously a defender, and can that make so much of a difference? But Popescu looked a lot more comfortable on that side. But I still feel the main problems for Hearts are coming from that central midfield area. Obviously, when Paul played with Hearts, you had your Colin Camerons, your Stevie Fultons in there. Later on, you've got your Paul Hartleys, your Brellies, Aguiars, guys that want to get on the ball. I just really feel that's what Hearts are missing, a pushing influence for that central midfield.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, it's a difficult role. I think that's the heartbeat of your team. That's where everything, as I said, starts and really, really manipulates from. But yeah, they are struggling in that area just now, and I think they'll get the balance. As I said, I think that through time it's about results just now, and it's by hook or by crook. And I think through time we'll get to a level of performance that we'll be happy with. But as I said, we've got to take 3 points and a clean sheet at this moment in time.
Absolutely, 100%. No, I agree with that completely.
And me, obviously, one of the negatives is coming out is Gino Ginelli's got his injury. I don't know what we think about that. What would you be keen to keep him on for next season, or do you think we need to have someone a bit more consistent? Is he worth the risk? Or
I think he's that's the issue. Is risk versus reward. As I said, there's no doubt in his ability. There's no doubt in his influence, but it's pointless if he's not going to be on the field. And I don't know how fit you can keep him. And when you push them at that next level, and as I say, if you're playing at the top level and the punters are back and it's the intensity increases by 20-25% guaranteed, because that's what will happen when supporters are back in the stadium. Can he handle that environment physically, mentally? If he can, then it's a no-brainer. But if he can't, then it could be a big risk.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Hearts we're not at the stage where we can be taking risks. Do you know what I mean? If we're signing players, you need to be banking on them playing, because we've not got not got the biggest squad or whatever. We've not got the luxury of the English teams down south that can just take him on and see what happens. He'll be getting a good money, and if he's not playing, it's not going to be worth it. I don't know.
Yeah, agreed.
And I think that if he's got Jordan Roberts and Freer that are not able to cement their place in that first team, and obviously they're new recruits, then we're going to see more of them. Whether they're any better than Henderson and Walker, I'm not too sure just yet. But let's hope that these guys can take this opportunity whilst it's there, because now that Gino's out, there's a vacancy in the team for someone to really push on now, kick on, and hopefully rejuvenate their Hearts career.
It's all I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's about opportunities, and it's but how many opportunities do these players get? The environment they're in just now is it's relatively. There's no pressure. There's no, as I said, we spoke about before about Hearts supporters being very opinionated and very vocal on how if you're not doing well or what they think. As I said, these players are getting a free ride just now. So if they can't perform in this environment, then that doesn't bode too well when the punters come back, because as I said, you need a tough skin to play for Hearts. You've got to have that ability to take the criticism when you deserve it, and then show the crowd that you want to play for the club, and you're putting the club before your own personal rewards. So these guys they've got a small window of opportunity to cement a place, because if they can't do it now, then as I said, they could be in trouble.
Yeah, I agree with that. What about you, Rory?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point that Paul's touching upon there, and it's something that I've maybe not thought about before, is players flourishing behind closed doors. I mean, we've all been at Tynecastle at times when it becomes toxic, and you sometimes feel for these new guys that come in and they'll maybe have a bad first touch or a bad 15 minutes, and that can cement some Hearts fans' opinions on you. You go, oh, he's rubbish, he's useless, and it can become quite toxic. So it's quite interesting to hear Paul speaking about that, and maybe these guys are performing a bit better behind closed doors. It'd be interesting to see who has got the bottle to stand up in front of 18,000 fans at Tynecastle when it's not gone well and get on the ball and make something happen, because it's a totally different dynamic, really.
Agreed.
Yep, completely. Right, so we've touched on the Saturday's game then. Let's move on to the next topic. Rory, you wanted to chat about your favourite Hearts kit?
Yeah.
With your favourite memories. Thomas covered that last week. It's your turn now.
Yeah, our little weekly feature. This is what brought us all together. And Paul, when I was researching you online for this week's podcast and stuff, I've seen that you put out a tweet, I think it was last year, about your favourite Hearts kit, and you mentioned the black and blue Inter Milan one. Is that one of your favourite Hearts kits?
Yeah, all time. I think, as I said, I've been very fortunate. I think Hearts have always done really well with, and obviously the brand, who sponsored them at the time, as I said, Asics, Umbro, whoever it may be, and it's just that strip for me was just pure quality. The colours, it was just, as I said, it was a perfect second or third strip. As I said, there's no getting away for the maroon and white. As I said, the home strip, every year they've come out with every 2 years a cracking home strip, and then it's just whatever comes out next. I'm a big fan of the black away strip. That blue and black stripe one was definitely up there with my top Hearts strip of all time.
Have you still got it? You still got it looking away somewhere? No?
It might. I've still got to go through it. As I said, my parents are still in the same house as they were when I was growing up, so we've got an attic full of strips up there, and I would love to go up there one day when I get back and go through I've got plenty of old ones. As I say, I've got the old silver one when I was a supporter. I got my first Hearts strip when I was 8 or 9. I've still got the silver with the maroon shorts and the white socks. I definitely have that in the house, size small. But yeah, I've got some old strips in my parents' house, and it'd be good to go back and go through them all.
Well, I don't know how much you know, Paul, but that's what's brought me, Lee, and Thomas together, is the love of old Hearts kits, really, and sort of buying, selling, getting a hold of these kits at
I've seen it. So yeah, it's fantastic. It's a great.
We love it.
Yeah, as I said, the amount of kits that'll be out there, and you just go through the years, and just there's phenomenal Hearts managed to produce.
So
I think the 93 Inter Milan style shirt was one of the first raffles I did, and I think it was something like £300 I managed to raise just off that one shirt, that went straight to Alzheimer's Research UK. And I as soon as I felt, making those donations, making the first one was a big step, but then it just became habitual and like such a good feeling. So any time that a nice Hearts shirt came up, I was never ever looking for it for my collection. It almost just went. It was foreign to me. It was like it would come in, I'd pack it up, and it would go straight away. But at the beginning of lockdown, I basically did that with all of my Hearts shirts, and the only one that I regret getting rid of was that 93 one. It's the collar, the buttons, the coordination with the stripes, everything. It's just smashing. What a shirt!
It was a quality shirt. And I know these guys and these companies do the sort of mock shirts, and there's been one or two nice ones. But yeah, it would be nice to see if someone brought that back one day. It would definitely be a big seller.
Oh, yeah. I think that was the massive disappointment with this shirt's the away shirt this year, because a lot of people online were chatting saying that it would be great if they were to do a reproduction of the 93 one, and people made little mock-ups, and then we ended up with this really bright blue goalkeeper shirt. Yeah. It was a massive damage.
Big kick in the bollocks. But exactly.
Yeah, big fall from Dre.
Sometimes it'd be interesting to see if these manufacturers and the club would actually take supporters. I don't know if they ever. I know that back in the day they did. Sometimes there was a poll and a vote for a third, even for the third strip. But as I say, the amount of money that these guys can make nowadays on kits, you would think they would pick one that would sell better than others. But yeah, it's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Do you buy shirts yourself anymore?
No, not really. I've got the Hearts shirt. I've got the two Hearts, the black and the maroon one. My kids bought me that for my Christmas. But yeah, not too much now. But as I said, I've got drawers really, old kits back at my parents, and as I said, once I get back there one day, I'll be able to go through them.
That's brilliant, mate. Do you got anything to add to that, Rory?
No, I've just got my Hearts kit. That's not the kit that I picked for this week. That was just a little bit of research that I done and seen that Paul had tweeted about that, and I just thought it was interesting. I'm sure we'll touch on the 93 kit further on down in the podcast, but I made a different selection for this week, controversially.
Okay.
So
go on then, mate.
So seeing it's only the second week of the podcast, but it was my turn to pick the kit. So I started thinking about what makes us actually choose a certain Hearts kit. What draws us to these kits? Is it childhood memories? Is it your favourite players? Is it the success of the team while they're wearing that kit? Or is it just how the kit looks? It can be up there, but I decided that it was sort of all of the above. So what I'm going to do is, on my weeks through this podcast, I'm going to touch on every one of them, and I'm going to pick a different kit from, say, your childhood memories or your favourite players or whatever. So this one that I've picked, I'm following on from Thomas last week. Really, I've went for a kit that was successful. So it's a kit that we used that's going to be sort of go down in history just because of the achievements of the team wearing it. Now, Thomas obviously done the 98 one last week, which would have been perfect because we had Paul on wearing that kit. But I've decided to jump forward to the next time that we won the Scottish Cup against Gretna, and I've went with the Hummel home kit for this week. Is one of my favourite ones. So yeah, it's a bit of a bold choice as far as home kits go because there's nothing particularly special about the kit. It's a sort of neat design. There's simple arrows under the arms, basic sponsor on the front, Ukio Bankus. But we get a little bit of bonus points for this kit because, like we said last week, the away kit was just the exact opposite. It was just white with the maroon. The home kit's the maroon with the white. And also one of the goalkeepers' kits was just a blue version. Craig Gordon, not the one he wore in the final, but the one with the save and stuff. It was so the three kits were just exactly the same, just different colours. But I've picked this kit just because of the success that we had in it and the memories. So I'm sure every single Hearts fan can remember back to that season and the excitement, enthusiasm that the team had. There was roaring starts, there was quality players, there was free scoring midfielders, and if I'm being honest, I think that's something that we might not see again in my lifetime from a Hearts team. It was just exceptional. We had a great goalkeeper, we had solid centre backs, we had a European champion at left back, we had a right back who could chuck it into the box for anywhere on the pitch, we had a goal scoring centre midfielder, we had Brele, we had Aguiar dictating play, we had Lithuanian wingers, we had a Champions League winner up front, we had Roman Bednar causing chaos wherever he went, and that's without even mentioning Rudy Scatchell. I mean, that season, for the minute we played Middlesbrough at home in that friendly with all the trialists, to the end of the season, which culminated with us beating Aberdeen at Tynecastle under the lights to qualify for the Champions League, that Hummel kit just ties in with all of this. That's why it's there for me. I mean, what a season it was. I don't think it'll ever be repeated. We won a cup, we finished second in the league, and for me, we had the best ever player to wear a Hearts kit, and that's Rudy Scatchell. So that's why this Hummel kit is my first pick. I look at it now and I can still hear Takis singing the Champions League song. I can see Rudy's left foot smashing through the ball. I can see Craig Gordon's save against Motherwell. I can see Robbie's tackle in the final. I can see Hartley's Hampden hat-trick sending the Highbees home for their tea. But most importantly, this kit reminds me standing outside the City Chambers, shoulder to shoulder with thousands of Hearts fans. So I'd like to say thank you to George Burley, thank you to Graham Ricks, thank you to Valdas Ivanauskas, but thank you to Hummel. And thank you to Mr. Romanov. We lived the dream, and I loved every single second of it. So that's why my first pick is the Hummel home kit from that cup winning season.
Amen.
What a way to finish a podcast. Unbelievable.
Did I sell it?
Jesus.
Oh, you sold it.
You did.
100%. Wow.
That was incredible.
Fantastic.
What do you think of that kit, Paul, that season? Obviously, you've mentioned George Burley earlier in the podcast. Were you a bit sceptical when he went to Hearts? Or?
No, not at all. No, as I say, I think you've just everything you spoke about there was what I achieved. As I said, I think it was a special time to be a Hearts supporter. As I said, I think when you look at '98, then as I said, you fast forward 5 years, and as I said, that squad, the quality of the individuals that Hearts managed to put onto the club. And the success they had that season was incredible. And you're right, as I said, the chances of that happening again could be very, very slim. So, as I said, I back you up 100%. It was an incredible year.
I think like my body just transported somewhere whenever I hear the words Takis Fisas, Julian Brele, Paul Hartley, Scatchell, Jankowski, honestly, the butterflies. It will never be repeated, and I think we can all just be grateful that, we achieved that and got to witness such fantastic displays against the Old Firm, against Hibs, and it's phenomenal. Great choice. Yeah. And a lovely shirt.
Yeah, it is. It's
really
basically the Hummel sort of design, but when you look back on all their memories, it's there. And I'm actually quite glad that it was a simple kit for that season. So when we look back on the memories, it's like the '98 one, Paul. You had a great kit then, and that's sort of what the only problem with the 5-1 kit is the Wonga slapped across the front of it. Do you know what I mean? So that's why I quite like our kits for that.
Yeah. No, great,
brilliant, lovely. Right, so we'll tie it up there, guys. First of all, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Mr. Paul Ritchie for coming along and spending his afternoon with myself and Rory over the Maroon and discussing all the topics that we've covered. We'll be back next week. We've got another special guest coming along, and hopefully we're discussing another Hearts win, as well as my shirt choice for that one.
No pressure following that.
Yeah. Guys, it was an absolute pleasure. Rory, thank you very much.
That's it.
No worries, Paul.
No, thank you, Paul. And take care over at Stateside.
Stay safe, man.
We hope to hear from you soon.
Bye-bye.
Away up in Gorgie at Tynecastle Park, there's a wee football team not to lie, make its mark. They've won all the honours of footballing arts. There's no other team to compare with the Hearts. HEARTS. If you can't spell it, then here's what it says. Hearts, hearts. story. This is my song. Follow the heart, you can't go wrong. Or some say that Rangers and Celtics are grand. The boys